What are some of the strategies that helped me recover from trauma and support my well-being today? Today, I'm going to share a little bit about my own experience, and I thought it would be fun, considering that I specialize in helping people recover from trauma, to share about what was helpful for me. Please note, this is not therapeutic advice because everybody is different. So different things are going to work for different people. But I do hope that some of this might be useful to you. So the first thing that was helpful for me in my recovery was to stop trying to force the process. I think in our culture, a lot of times there's like a ticking clock. We want to get things done. We want to get it fast. And sometimes there's this idea, right, that if we kind of like break everything open and get down to the very bottom, and kind of like pull out whatever's underneath the bed, pull out whatever's hiding in the closet, that, we'll be done, right? We'll be healed. But for me personally, that was not the case. By trying to force the progress, I was actually harming myself. I wasn't respecting my internal barriers that were created for the purpose of allowing me to function. So I just wanted to say that the first step of healing for me was to really take the foot off the pedal and allow myself to kind of rest, heal, and then begin in like little bite-sized pieces, respecting whatever came up within me. Because I think there's this idea of resistance as being a bad thing in therapy, right? Like if someone's not ready to do something, sometimes that's seen as a problem. But I actually think that sometimes this not readiness is protective, right? There's a reason why we have it. So it's good to dialogue with that versus just forging ahead. I think it's important to have respect for the inner world. We usually do have some wisdom in there, right? At least that's my perspective. So the second thing that was really helpful for me was gently experimenting with embodiment. And this was something that a therapist helped me with. And when I say embodiment, what I mean is for many people who've been through trauma, we learn to not live in our body, right? It's kind of like we walk around and we're not fully present, right? Maybe we're thinking about the past without meaning to, or we're thinking about what's happening next. I think a lot of people do this anyways, right? This is not just specific to people with trauma, but we're not 100% present. And then one of the ways that we might deal with triggers or with the stress or negative emotions is by leaving the body, okay? So this might be like classic dissociation. It could look like something else. I'm not that interested in labeling this right now. I think labels have a function, but anyhow, I'm just going to leave it at that. There were times when, right, just not very present, not in the body. Well, what I learned from myself was that in order to experience all of these wonderful positive emotions and sensations, I needed to be in my body, right? Like I couldn't really enjoy like the taste of, fresh strawberry, or I couldn't really enjoy like my own, little like massage, like rubbing lotion into my hands, if I wasn't fully in my body. And so for me, it was helpful to learn how to kind of manage that relationship to my body and find ways to enjoy being in my body and also feel safe in it, right? So finding ways to experience safety in the present and in the environment. And this is a big piece of trauma work. This is something I love helping people with, is like how to find safety in the present, how to find safety in their bodies. Okay, and now I'm going to share about the relationship to, what I'm ingesting. So this could be like a substance. It could also be like content on social media. It could be what movies I'm watching, what books I'm reading. Just really taking kind of like an inventory of how these things are impacting me. What is like the narrative in them, right? Am I watching true crime shows, where the bad guy loses and gets locked up, but in the meantime, it's like very stressful and my body is like reacting to the stress? Am I, self-numbing or trying to escape through a substance? How is that impacting me? Is it helping my recovery, or is it kind of taking me backwards a little bit, right? Everyone's different, but for me personally, kind of figuring those things out with a therapist and on my own was helpful. And to this day, it's something I do, right? I'll look at what I'm watching on social media and I'll think to myself, is this is this helping me? Is this healthy for me? Or is it making me, invest in narratives that are not so great. Because a lot of us, we have like this negativity bias, right? We're drawn to the negative. And so a lot of times on social media, it's like you get hooked by a negative narrative. And then because you watched one negative narrative, it recommends like 3 more, right? And then the more you watch it, the more, you kind of go down that rabbit hole. So I've learned it helps me to kind of take an inventory of what's coming up, how it's helping me, and then choose what's best for my recovery. Okay, I also wrote down hobbies. So this is going to sound so silly, but like for me, when I was really at rock bottom, I had to learn how to like play and soothe my emotions. So I kept like plants in pots. I developed like a little garden in my room. Later, I had some plants that I was able to plant outside, which was nice. I learned how to collage. Literally just did it myself with like old magazines and things. I had fun with painting too, and I brought that to therapy. I worked with a depth therapist, and in depth psychotherapy, the creative process can be really helpful for understanding, the inner world and what's happening in our unconscious. And so I really appreciated that. I also kept a dream journal, and I just journaled as well. And having that outlet in a contained way was very helpful. Okay, so, one other thing that I wanted to, I have 2 things left on here. So the next one is, this is the therapy with someone I could trust. I had been in therapy many times prior to the therapist that I credit with really helping me change my life. And before I met this therapist, it was just not working. And a lot of this is probably on me. Some of it is probably on them as well, right? I think that in order for therapy to work, the therapeutic relationship, it has to be strong, right? In my opinion, as someone who studied depth psychotherapy, that therapeutic alliance is like a test relationship for other relationships in our lives. And ideally, we have safety, we have trust, we have the ability to express ourselves openly and freely and give feedback, right? And for that therapist to be that safe figure who can like hold and contain what we're bringing them, right? Where we're not afraid of harming them with what we need to share. Where when we give them feedback, they can tolerate it, right? For me, that was very important. And when I practice therapy, this is kind of what I keep in mind for myself, is like, it's important for me to be able to contain what someone is sharing with me. It's a very important kind of like sacred responsibility in my mind. And I don't mean sacred in a religious sense. I mean it in like a spiritual sense, right? So yeah, to me, that was a big piece of my recovery, working with someone that I could trust and that could really help me go those places that I needed to go, but in a really gentle, contained way so that it wasn't too much. I wasn't going like rocketing to the bottom and then just kind of hitting the bottom and not having like any relief, right? So it was very, very nice. It was like steady, slow work. And then the last thing I wanted to share was the importance of relationships in my recovery. And for me, the relationship healing was just so beautiful. It takes time, right? Relationships in general, I think they take time to heal. And my personal perspective is that we can not control somebody else. Like, I think it's in general kind of healthy for us to see where our control begins and ends, and get comfortable with that and see like what our expectations are, see where we tend to hold resentment, see, what is healthy for us to accept in others. Also kind of rediscover like, what are our values? Do our values align with the important people in our life? And if they don't, like, what are the deal breakers, right? I find that I learn a lot from where my values don't necessarily align with others. If I'm able to kind of be open, I might get something out of that relationship anyways. So I'm not necessarily saying that we have to have the exact same values as someone else, because I do think it's important to, like have this diversity in our world, right? I think there's this saying, right? It takes all kinds. And I think that part of that is like having this tolerance for other people's ideas and beliefs and values. And I think this is something that it's helped. The more like work I did on myself and that I do on myself, the more it helps me tolerate those differences, because when we feel more secure, right, we don't necessarily feel threatened by somebody else having a different opinion or point of view. So those are some of the things that have been helpful for me in my recovery. And I just wanted to say too that I'm very grateful that I had a lot of support in my recovery journey. I wish that everybody had, the ability to have access to the things that have helped me with my recovery, such as like access to, healthy food, access to, the right doctors that were able to help me, the access to a therapist that has the right experience, the right training to meet me where I'm at. There are so many ways that I was supported through my recovery process, and I just wanted to acknowledge that. I think that we benefit greatly from support from others, and I'm very passionate about that. So I just wanted to share that and say, everyone has a different process, a different journey, and I think it's nice when we're able to share our experience and hope and see how it helps others. And if you would like to, work on your own trauma recovery, if you're have some thought that you want to share with me, my email is in my bio, or my website is anyway, so you can find a way to reach me through that. Thank you for listening. I appreciate your time.